Welcome, everybody, with that serenade to the Young Filmmakers podcast. We're joined here by three young filmmakers, accordingly to the title. We've never done a podcast before, so we're going to go around and explain who we are, what we do. I'm going to start off. My name is Vance. I'm an actor, filmmaker, writer. Sometimes I co-direct projects. I'm into voice acting, photography. We can link all of our stuff down below. I got into film probably around sophomore year. I got really interested in it. And it's just kind of gone from there. We've been a group for about that long as well. I believe Ubay had joined a little bit later, but we've been making short films and such for quite a bit. But yeah, I think that's about it. I'm 18. But yeah, here we go. Ubaid?
Hi, I'm Ubaid Mohammed. I also make films. I started film I started freshman year. Funnily enough, I started just to fill in my 8th-year requirements for an art class, and then I ended up really liking it. So then I just continued in that area. I joined in with Vance and Patrick over here, I believe my junior year, because that's when we were in a equal class enough to actually join each other. They're a grade above me. And I do photography. I'm pretty good at a boom pole, if I do say so myself. And yeah, I'm 17, not 43, so I look.
Hello, I'm Patrick Kramian. I started getting into film freshman year, but it was more of a hobby or something. I first started taking it seriously when Vance and I actually started making projects together in sophomore year. I'm also 18. Usually on our projects, I direct. I'm the cinematographer. I make the music, as you can see, and yeah.
Oh, just for clarification, I do stuff. I edit. I don't just sit around. I mean, yeah.
Nice. Okay, so with that, let's go into what we're gonna be doing on these podcasts in general. So, we're gonna stay pretty focused on film-related things, but like you'll see in this podcast, we're gonna go a little bit off onto separate things, but they're still going to be somewhat related to our career. So, we're talking philosophy, the climate of, what's going on in the world, how that affects, us and how we, make films. So, but it's mostly going to be based around films. So that's what you're going to get from us. We're pretty laid back. It's not going to be some super, tense thing. We're just here to talk about what we like to do. But with that, let's go into the first topic we have here. Do you need to watch a lot of films to be proficient in films? And what I mean by proficient is good, knowing how something is supposed to be made, knowing the kind of the whole structure of a film. Do you need to watch a lot of films to be able to understand that? We're going to start with Ubaid, what do you think?
So I would say that you don't need to watch a lot of films. It would honestly depend on watching the right films. For example, I grew up watching Bollywood. So when I first came into video, my films were pretty garbage, if I do say so myself. And so I think it's not necessarily watching a lot of films. It's watching the right films that properly do story. A good movie for me to understand what the general how story was supposed to be is, well, not necessarily story, but for editing for me was Baby Driver, which is an amazing edited movie. And the first movie I watched that was a proper film movie, I think, was Django Unchained. Vance recommended that to me. That's a great movie, but it's honestly going from a perspective of a kid who grew up on Bollywood and watching cars explode from touching them, to watching films over here it's really different because of obviously the cultural differences, but then also obviously what the film standards are here are different. So yeah, it's just watching the right films, not necessarily watching a lot, in my opinion.
Okay. We're gonna move on to Patrick.
So, yeah, I definitely agree with Ubed. It's not about how many films you watch, it's about the quality of the films you watch. Like, if you watch, like, just, like, Marvel movies and say, like, that's how I'm gonna make movies, like that, I feel like Marvel movies are just, like, a trend that's gonna be over in, like, minimum a year. But,
I see.
I mean, like, although my background in like what films I used to watch when I was a kid is completely different from Ubed. I used to watch like the big like Hollywood movies, and that's kind of what sparked my interest in film. But I definitely don't think even those are good at like storytelling like in general. But I think they're good in like stuff like with the Marvel movies, like getting an audience to come to your movie and watch, and building like a community and a fan base and stuff.
Mm-hmm. The marketing.
Yeah, basically. The big movies, they focus more on marketing and making money, but it's the little ones that show you like the power that movies have.
Yeah. Okay, and then for it's like opening statements, and then we'll go and we'll talk about individual stuff. But I also agree. I grew up watching literally exclusively superhero movies. That's all I watched. Like, I remember a little kid, I was so picky about the movies I watched. I would watch like Spider-Man, for example, the Tobey Maguire movie. I think I've seen that movie like 150 times because I just refused to watch anything else growing up. But that didn't teach me anything. I mean, it got me interested in films, but like even still growing up, I like refused to watch other film. Even like in my teenage years, I was for a long time like an exclusive Marvel fan. Like, that's all I watched, you know. And when you get interested in film, when you start actually creating them yourself, you start to realize the difference between a company like that and like actual things that are possible to create. Like, you're not going to be able to, you know, like fly through the air and like do 6 backflips, you know. So yeah, I definitely think it's about like the quality of what you watch that helps you grow rather than the quantity. Obviously, if you can do both, if you can watch a lot of good movies, that helps a lot. So like in that regard, I think it's true. But I think just to say like, oh, well, I've seen like 100 movies, say something like vague like that, well, you could watch 100, you know, like Marvel movies, 100 Bollywood movies. It's not like convincing, you know what I mean? But if you watch like 100 classics, then it's a little bit different. So it kind of depends on what you're watching, but yeah. So do you guys want to expand on anything you said? So like, so for Patrick, so you make scores. So do you see that like in good movies, it's also good, like, does a good movie have to have a good score for you to like, let me rephrase that. So like, a good movie is different for you. Is that like correct or no? Like, because if you find like a good score in something that may not be the best storytelling, you can still like learn from it. Whereas for me, it's like if I see good acting, I might learn from it, even though like the movie is terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Like, everyone has their own things that they like, not necessarily focus on, but just like they pay attention to more in movies. And I think like definitely if that thing that you focus on, like for me, scores, or for you, Vance, acting, if it's better than the average movie, whether or not the other stuff is necessarily good, it'll definitely still stick out to you. You might not think of it as like a good movie, but you'll definitely say like that movie had some good acting, that movie had some good scores and stuff. And it definitely has a lot of stuff that you can learn. Even bad movies, like in general, if they're horrible movies, you can still learn a lot from it, especially like what not to do. But or even like if it's a bad movie with like a good score for me, for instance, like I can still like take out like how the score like interacts with the movie that makes it a good score, and I can still learn something from it even though it's not necessarily a good movie.
Okay. And how do you guys go about finding things that you like? So like, is there a specific director that you really, really enjoy, or like for you, Patrick, is there a specific composer that really, like, if you see them do a film, that's what you gravitate towards? So like, what determines the crop of what you watch?
Well, I think it definitely helps with like having like a favorite director or a favorite composer. Like for me, I love John Williams and John Powell. Those are my two favorite film composers. So like if I see they have another movie, I'm probably gonna watch it, whether or not like I like the story or the trailer or whatever, just to see like what they do with the score. And for directors too, Steven Spielberg, Wes Anderson, Quentin Tarantino. Those are all great directors that definitely, if they have a new movie coming out, I'm going to go watch it. Whether or not, like, if I end up, like, liking the trailers or whatever. Yeah.
But do you have, like, what catches your eye, like, for trailers, for example? Like, what makes you interested in wanting to watch something?
I mean, honestly, I'm pretty early into the, like, watching movies, like watching movies still. So honestly, I haven't really found like a specific director. I would say if a movie just looks good, then I'd watch it. Yeah, I mean,
what determines like looking good? Are you interested in like is it like powerful, or is it like, is the cinematography really good? Like
I think overall, I mean, it all ties in together. But I'd say that movies that look as they're gonna have either a good story, or they're not just like action based, like, oh, it's just like a 20-minute fight sequence and that's like the trailer. I'm probably not gonna gravitate towards that. Whereas like a movie that shows, I mean, trailer wise, if a movie shows like a good trailer, like 1917 is a really good trailer, Joker has a really, really good trailer, and movies like those I guess I'd gravitate towards. But I wouldn't I don't think I have found a niche of movies yet.
Okay. Let's go back to the Marvel segment. I feel like it's talked about a lot, because Marvel has a lot of movies and there's a lot of content to be seen. So what do you guys think? Because I know, Ubaid, I think to a degree you and I are both still semi-interested in Marvel. It's just, what, in your opinion, have you started to what have you taken away from Marvel movies that you maybe have disliked now that you're kind of growing into an actual filmmaker perspective?
Well, our film teacher, Wade Williams, shout out to Wade Williams. He actually told us in the beginning of the class, he said that, I hope that at the end of this class I make you hate movies, because we know all the inner workings of the movies and what a good movie is supposed to be, that we just not be able to watch it. I think Marvel, I'll still watch Marvel movies with my siblings, because it's just family time or whatever. But I don't think I'd go to Marvel movies if I want to understand film, you know? They're the 20-minute action sequence movies that I talk about. What was I gonna say? So going back to what I said 5 seconds ago about how Wade said that he'd make us hate movies, I used to watch a lot of B-list movies with my family, just for no reason. There'd be a bunch of random movies on, I think, Amazon Prime Video or whatever, and my dad has it. So we just sit and watch some movies. And now I can't sit through B-list movies. It hurts my head.
Yeah. So yeah, mine's pretty much the same way. So I think when I started, he said the same thing to us when we started. I think the big thing with Marvel, once I started to get to understand what films were, was not necessarily the what it takes to make that movie and what makes it not as impressive. It's the comparisons to other things that I've seen. So like one of the big ones we watched in our film class was 2001: A Space Odyssey, and so that was like so different to anything I'd ever seen, and at first it was way too different for me to like enjoy it. But over the years, when you keep watching and you keep getting exposed to it, you start to understand like what most like movies are like compared to like what Marvel movies are. And like Martin Scorsese has said this, you start to look at Marvel movies like they're kind of this like roller coaster ride. Like they're fun, but they're not filled with this kind of intricate webbing that you see from like directors like Stanley Kubrick, who take, you know, hours upon hours upon hours for, you know, single takes. You see in these movies, a lot of it is just kind of glossed over with CGI, you know, all that kind of stuff, VFX in general. And as like a filmmaker who like we have to spend time like making shots look really good. We don't have like the power to just be like, oh well, we're just gonna like throw a bunch of stuff in like and fix it and make the shot look really good and like, you know, have this whole digital landscape. It's kind of a mixture of like bitterness and like kind of like that's, you know, like I can't respect them because I mean I respect them to a certain degree, but because they have that kind of technology, I feel like it's too easy sometimes.
Yeah,
like
they just like what is it called, like fall back onto CGI rather than...
Yeah, exactly. And it's and you can see in some movies where that just falls completely flat. They're so hyper focused on that. I think Black Panther's a good example. In the final scenes, you can see like the CGI gets like really bad in like that train sequence, and because like when they're fighting at the end, and because those films are so centered on CGI, suddenly you're kind of ripped from the immersion because now they look like Xbox 360 characters. Whereas if it's like a Kubrick movie, you don't have like that kind of reliance. You know, it's him. It's like him making a film. Whereas it's like you're not relying on some like artist who's doing something like 8 months after you've filmed. You know what I mean? So, but yeah. Patrick, do you have anything to add on to the whole Marvel thing?
Sure. I definitely think even though I wouldn't say I'm a fan of Marvel movies, I have watched my fair share of Marvel movies, and I do think watching them it kind of transformed all three of us, I can see, into more like traditional filmmakers. Like we don't like a complicated camera moves or like really like more modern techniques. We like more like old school techniques like Kubrick and people like that from like back in like the 60s and 70s, what I consider the renaissance of Hollywood.
True.
But yeah, it just pushed us more towards, you know, story driven films rather than like fun films.
Yeah. And so it's a comparison thing. So
Yeah.
so that's what I mean when it comes to watching a lot of films, and if that can dictate your style. I think you need to watch a wide variety to find what you really don't like and what you really like. I was sheltered my whole life with watching Marvel movies, so I had no idea like that there was a different way. So when you go into film for the first time, you want to, you know, be Spider-Man, you know what I mean? So it's not possible. So once you start like realizing that, I think it's really, really beneficial, and it makes you look at film just like in a way more like serious and like honest way, instead of trying to like work your way up to some insane, like not even in the realm of possibility kind of goal.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I just want to clarify real quick. We're not saying that Marvel movies like we're better than Marvel movies. There's obviously a reason.
No. Obviously,
there's obviously a reason that they're making it to cinemas. We're just, as from a critiquing perspective for like film students, we're just critiquing.
Yeah. So, yeah, and even in Marvel movies, there's some really good acting. There's some really good scores. I think there's some really, really like defining moments. But as a filmmaker, what we're trying to show is like the perspective of somebody who's trying to get into film and what you should pay attention to help you make better films. And so as a young filmmaker's perspective, you're not going to have the $5,000 dolly rig or the steady cam. You know, we have been spoiled to have some of those things, but even then, like, you know, we don't even use them that often because it's just not, it's not practical. So
Yeah.
like as young filmmakers, if you're somebody watching who's interested in film, I personally think you shouldn't look at those kind of movies and try to emulate them. You should try to look at some of the other, you know, older things that are easier to pull off, technically speaking, and focus on like what are you trying to say as a filmmaker? Because I think Marvel movies aren't so centered on like a message. Some of them are, and it's like, you know, like whatever it may be, but mostly it's a spectacle, and we can't do that as young filmmakers. That's what we're trying to say. We're not. You can't do spectacles as a young filmmaker most of the time. You have to be story driven, and you have to be intricate.
Yeah, like I definitely think like at the beginning of your career you should focus on like the creativity side of it. So because the technical side is always going to change. Like even Stanley Kubrick, like at the beginning, like they were like using like shooting on like model spacecraft for like 2001, but then like towards the end when like computers were invented and like all these crazy like CGI stuff, even though like he didn't really use it that much, but like he still had like access to it, and so technology can like change so much through your career. So but creativity will like always, like everyone's gonna always like tell a story in not necessarily the same way, but it's gonna be like similar enough that it's not like completely throwing out like the old school ideas.
Yeah, it's true. I think you see that. There's a really good way to see that. It's in the kind of the vlog industry. So I think it was like about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer. The big thing was everybody needed a gimbal, right? Like
Yeah.
every single person needed a gimbal. It was like the coolest thing, and now nobody uses it. Nobody uses gimbals. Who uses gimbals for vlogging? I mean, maybe some people do, but the whole thing is like everybody bought in on this thing, thinking that like, hey, if I have this piece of equipment, people will watch my videos. When in reality, it's like, we're gonna watch you if you're good. You know what I mean? And there's always gonna be the better camera. There's always gonna be the better like setup, or you know, more expensive setup. Like you can film a movie on a camcorder. You know, if it's high quality story and it's compelling and it's emotional, people are gonna watch it. You can film an entire movie on an Arri Alexa and have it be, you know, Spider-Man Suburbia. Nobody's gonna watch it. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't matter what it is. Spider-Man Suburbia is our like short film that we did a while back that we're not very proud of, but it was a good moment. But yeah, so it's about link in the description to watch that, or don't watch it, which I'm not gonna blame you. But yeah, so it's all about the content of what you do, and I think Marvel is kind of taking the stance all the time of like, here's the newest technology. They're kind of like the E3 of technology for movies. Like they're when their movie comes out, you're like, oh, so that's what CGI is like at its pinnacle right now. Like you go watch Iron Man, like, oh, that's what CGI was at its peak in 2008 or whatever. And now you can see like Endgame, you can have thousands of people flying through the air and like spaceships and lasers, and it's like, oh, well, that's cool, but like, you know, it's not, you know what I mean? So but yeah, like we said, it's Marvel is good. It has a purpose, and by no means are we saying that like our stuff's better, we're better filmmakers. It's like, but we're just saying as a perspective thing, what's more important, growing.
Yeah, I think one thing people don't people put to the side is story. Like story is gonna trump everything else. I remember like 2 or 3 years back, I had a Rebel T1i, which is one of the first Canon DSLRs, because it was my dad's old one, and I really wanted to start a YouTube channel. So I instead of actually starting one, I decided to like pester my dad to let me buy like I think it was 6D Mark II. That was like the nice one back then, like 4 years ago. I'm saying back then like I'm an old person. But I think if I had actually like started making YouTube videos just like 3 or 4 years ago, instead of just continuously like saying, oh, I need a better thing, or I need to get better equipment so that I can make better videos, then I think I would have had like a community by now. Just like what I'm trying to say is start with what you have, And then obviously quality is always quality over quantity in this industry especially.
Yeah, you can literally film. Our film teacher brings this up a lot. You can seriously film a short film on your phone. It like doesn't matter what it is. I mean, the iPhone 7 is gonna be capable of filming a short film. I mean, and people will watch it. I mean, and there has been some films that are filmed on that, and it's like once you have like the quality aspect down, once you have like people who genuinely enjoy what you do, then you can look at or if you feel like you are reaching a point where you're gonna need something, like for sure, not just like you want something, oh this is nice, and that's like you actually need this to get better, then you can invest in those things. So yeah, it's like tying back to the Marvel thing or the vlogger thing.
Just trashing on Marvel this entire podcast.
Well, no. It's just like they're the biggest. Like they have the most equipment and everything. So, like, don't get sucked into that kind of whole thing and that whole ring around constantly of what's better. It's kind of the same for like a lot of hobbies or passions. I mean, we all here are interested to a degree in like computers, for example, and there will always be a better computer, but like it's not rational when a new thing comes out for you to automatically get it and like immediately put it in your computer. It's just not rational. You're going to have a setup that you're going to have for multiple years, and then at some point when it physically cannot run what you want it to run, you're going to have to change it. So that's kind of how it is, but yeah. Is that
oh, sorry, what?
I'm just gonna say, is that what everybody had to say? Obviously not. But
well, I was just gonna say that's something my dad would say a lot when I'd ask him for a better camera. He'd say that you haven't made anything. You're not hitting a cap at which you need something to be like. You're not hitting anything that you need to be like better equipment. He's like, make stuff on this one, and then. I mean, the only reason I actually upgraded this camera was because my old one literally stopped working.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good reason.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. All right, so are we going to move on to the next segment?
I believe so. This is
sure.
One segment.
Okay, so next up, next up, we're doing camera news. Some people in this chat are fired up over the new camera news. We got some new Canon cameras. Not too familiar with Canon, I must say, but the Canon R5 was announced recently. Let's get some opinions flying. Patrick, you want to start?
Sure. I'm pulling up the specs right now. So first off, it's $3,900 on a B&H photo. Not a sponsor.
You can though.
B&H, if you're watching this,
hit us up. Yeah, first podcast B&H. Please hit us up.
So, okay, right off the bat, it has a Canon RF lens mount. I'm not saying anything, but I do not like that Canon has like 3 different types of lens mounts. Like, you gotta what's the word? You gotta like have like some continuity with that kind of stuff, you know?
True.
Because you could buy like a Canon lens, and yeah, it's a Canon camera, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna fit on the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone else want
to... Just to clarify, I am not, like, very technically sound, so if I say anything and it's completely wrong, hopefully they correct me. But if they don't get angry, because I'm like the actor guy. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
You said a bad word. There goes our monetization.
Demonetized. We're gonna bleep it out in post. It's fine.
Are we though?
If I remember.
Patrick. All right.
Yeah, he will remember. What I'm looking at here, so like I've been looking at some cameras, just like way down the line what I'd be interested in for like photography, and I can see from like I think like the A7 III from Sony has like 15 stops of in-body image stabilization or something like that. It's something that
dynamic range.
It's something like that. Well, no, it's in-body stabilization. This is an 8-stop for the EOS R5. And I think like the XT4 from Fujifilm has like 15 as well. And it's just I personally
image stabilization.
Yeah. If you look at the top features, it says 8-stop in-body IS. the IBIS?
Uh, well, stop.
Anyways.
Stop is in terms of has to do with exposure. So I don't know how that's.
No. I think it has to. Doesn't like the in-body, like the IBIS, it's like when they have like the in-body stabilization, it like keeps it like in the center, so like it, you know what I mean? So like it's as many stops that it can do that without it like, it's kind of like FPS but with like movement or some I don't know. But anyways,
Here's
it's like
what we're talking. Vince doesn't know what he's talking about.
it's already like been clarified. But anyways, what I've seen with cameras that are less money, it's like they already have features that are way better. But then again, I'm kind of biased. When I got into like cameras, or even before I got into cameras, my like whole perspective of Canon was Peter McKinnon, and not gonna take any shots here, but like I just don't think that he's that like he's kind of like the Canon like flagship boy, like he's kind of like the poster boy, and I think he's kind of, you know, he's kind of out there. So
I don't think we should constrain it to just one YouTuber. I mean, personally, I kind of Peter McKinnon's content, but I think it's whenever cameras release or companies release like new cameras, then I think everyone overhypes them.
Yeah,
like,
true.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so that's what I mean. It's part of that because like Peter McKinnon's paid to talk about Canon, and so he gets these videos out, and he's like, you know, like, oh man, well, like, look at this, man. And it's just like my perspective, like looking in at somebody who doesn't even like own a Canon, it can come off as like really YouTuber-ish and really like sensationalism. You know what I mean? It's like I'd rather watch somebody who's like actually just talking about the camera and isn't like paid to do it. So, but that's just my like perspective. I haven't seen other companies that have like YouTubers like that, not that I'm aware of. So that's like the big thing for me because like I said, I'm not like too fluent with like camera related things. It's just kind of like the vibe they give off, I guess. That's kind of weird sometimes. Yeah, I think people look at like big numbers here for cameras and they freak out, like 45 megapixels or like 8K, and it's kind of just like we were just talking about this. What is the actual applications that these have? What are
doing
the actual
CGI?
Uses? Yeah, I mean, well, that's what I mean. If you're gonna have 8K 30p RAW or 4K 120p, I don't think people are gonna use a Canon camera. I think they're just gonna get a cinema camera. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I definitely think if you're the main reason that Canon made like these higher quality like DSLR form factor sort of stuff is for like the vloggers and stuff, right? That are like doing like YouTube videos. What YouTuber is gonna upload their video in 8K?
Yeah, seriously, nobody can run that in their browser. Like nobody's
exactly. So
I downgrade the quality when I watch video.
I definitely think like if you're like just wanting like these specs to like film like movies that you're gonna need like CGI in, don't go for like a DSLR.
Yeah, or even a mirrorless.
Like a full-on cinema camera.
Yeah, I think someone made
for cheaper.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Ubed. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Someone, if I remember correctly, someone made a video that said what you can buy instead of the Canon R5. Hold on, let me put it up with.
Well, yeah, like so for us, for example, we're interested in the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, and that's like what, like $1,000 compared to what? How much did we say this was?
3,900.
So yeah,
almost
so like you could,
$4,000.
And is that just body?
That's body only.
Oh my, wow. So yeah, so you can get, and the lenses, the high lens, you know, like because you're not gonna buy a $4,000 body and then not get a, you know, several $1,000 lens. If you could get a Blackmagic Pocket 4K, if you're interested in doing movies or short films, which I'd imagine people are, if you want to film in 8K, you could get a Blackmagic Pocket 4K and get all of these things. You can get a cage, multiple lenses, you know, you can get an external monitor, so many things, and have money saved
for the
over.
same price as a body.
Yeah, probably even less, and you'd have money saved up to, you know, go buy a pizza and laugh at the people out there on the street who are filming with their $20,000 setup. You know, I'm like, my camera's freaking out. I'm talking crap about Canon, and my Nikon is is pissing the bed. But yeah, so like I don't know. Like I said, it's a lot of sensation. It's a lot of like big numbers. I don't know. If I'm gonna buy a camera like that, it's gonna be for photography, and I'm not gonna need 8K. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna. Even for photography, you're not gonna need 45 megapixels, unless you're printing billboards. Which even then, you don't need 45 megapixels because nobody's gonna be like up close to your billboard. They're gonna be like 1,000 yards away looking at it. So, also the EVF is not even in the realm of like high amount of dots. I've seen mirrorless is like 13 million or 9 million or something. Once again, I don't like know for sure, but yeah. Anybody else?
The only thing I like about this camera is it has dual card slots.
I'd hope so for $4,000. You'd get dual. I want quadruple card slots for $4,000. Yeah, why is that a feature that not many cameras have? Not having dual card slots.
I honestly have no idea. I would assume it's probably the main reason is it might be a little bit more expensive to do that or something, or like to code the camera to like swap cards automatically or something.
Yeah. And even then, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was actually reading the other day that the reason there's a 30-minute time limit on a lot of cameras is because if there wasn't, they'd have to charge more for it, because then it doesn't fit into a certain, it doesn't fit into a certain category of camera that it can only film at 30 minutes max. So, because then I think it'd be classified as a higher level of camera, so you'd have to charge more for it.
So it's like a corporate thing, like.
I think so.
I see.
That makes sense.
But 14-bit for its bit depth, that's pretty good.
That is really good.
Well, yeah, I have over here a comparison sheet of the R5, the R6, the new A7S III, and then the A7 III, which I believe came out in 2017 or 2018. But I think what's a really big factor here is that while the R5, R6, and all can do, R5 or R6 can do 4K at 60 FPS, R5 can do 8K, and then the A7S III is 4K at 60 as well, and so is the A7 III. So if you're gonna get like a DSLR for like a photo video like dual setup, like how you'd have with a normal DSLR, I think it's more feasible to get a cheaper camera so you can spend more on lenses and better glass compared to a more expensive camera that you would be like out of money. I mean, obviously if you're like loaded, then I guess have at it. But for like from a personal point of view, where I'm not loaded, just to put that up there.
None of us here are loaded, so like this is obviously coming from a perspective.
Yeah, it's just not it's not feasible to get something that's way more expensive. That if I was to go do a shoot for someone, I'm not going to do 8K because I don't want to spend the time with my computer. If I'm going to do work for a client, I'm obviously going to film it, edit it, get it to them as fast as possible. But the issue with 8K is that I have to sit through rendering it. And it's not feasible for me to sit down and waste time rendering 8K when I can just give them 4K or 1080 that looks just as good.
Yeah, your client who is not, he's not well versed in cameras isn't gonna sit there and pixel count, how many things. Oh, there's not 8K. I don't like this. I'm not paying you. I think it's like very, very niche to say like I shoot 8K.
I think there's also been a stigma put on 1080 that it's just garbage, whereas
I don't get that.
Because I've gone to people and then they're like, okay, I don't want 1080, use my GoPro and film with 4K, and I'm not gonna film in fisheye 4K. I'm sorry.
Fisheye, dude. But filming a skate video.
Yeah, I think there's been a negative stigma put on 1080 that shouldn't be there, because 1080 looks nice if done properly. you just need to have like the right like exporting settings. Obviously, don't like export into 280 and say, why does this look garbage?
Yeah.
But,
Well, and once again, those things are coming from people who aren't literate in cameras or the whole process in general. It's like I said, the whole big thing with this is like the sensation of the big numbers. You know, like we're very like, like look at 8K, like wow, like but like anybody who actually uses cameras, who is proficient in knowing like what you actually need, is gonna know. They're gonna look at that and be like, "Do I really need 8K? Like probably not. I'm not gonna need that." Like
even
from your perspective.
Oh, go ahead.
So, about that, like the whole 8K and 4K thing, the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that like 90% of movies, like big movies, are finished in 2K, which is just slightly bigger than 1080p.
Is that 1440?
No, it's I think it's like the width is 2080 and the height is like 1100 or something like that. So it's not even that bigger than full HD.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but what is because I know Christopher Nolan does IMAX like exclusively. What is that? Is that
Well, so the thing about like shooting on film, film basically has like an infinite resolution. There's that famous like Nolan interview, I think it's on like Jimmy Fallon or something, where he says like IMAX film is technically like 18K. Like no, like film has like infinite resolution basically, because the way that they get like that 18K, that means like they scanned it into the computer with an 18K like scanner.
Oh, okay.
It's all based on like the scanner that you use that determines like the quality of the film.
Yeah, but I just mean like when you're watching a Nolan film, I bet it's still 2K. Yeah. I bet it's still the same exact.
It's definitely projected in 2K. Is like they shrink it down because most projectors, I don't think they can handle like projecting 4K.
Yeah, and most theaters only have like one IMAX room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if they are like doing like an actual like film reel projector, then you can automatically tell like the big difference. Like, here's another thing. The audience might not know this, but I know these two guys know this. I am dying to shoot something on film, because the thing about film, I've watched an actual film reel once, and the thing about that is, film it's a lot less detailed than like digital cameras, but it's a lot more. No, hold on. It's less detailed. Yeah, it's more detailed, but it's less sharp. So it has like this weird like duality to like the quality. It's not it looks like slightly out of focus, but it's still like there's still a lot of detail to it, and it looks just as good as like digital, if not better, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people say this, and I think a lot of people at first are like, okay, that's just like stupid. You're just like making up stuff because you want to use older things. But really, like when people say film kind of has this personality to it when you're watching, it's actually true. Like I love like film photography, for example. If you look at a digital photo and then you look at a film photo, like for some reason, I don't know if it's a placebo effect, but it really does. It has like this like personality to it. It has a different kind of vibe to the overall look of it. And it's the same way with movies. It's just like it's a really, really different kind of look. And it's unique.
The doubters, they don't know this, but film like actually has like a different reaction to light than digital. Like it actually captures colors differently than digital.
Yeah, of course. Because digital will always be a recreation.
Exactly.
Whereas film is like, it's like sucking it in and like is like time stamping it forever in this little thing. You know, so, but yeah. Anybody else?
So back to the whole like like a couple minutes ago with Ubed talking about getting more better glass rather than a better camera. I definitely agree with that, because right now this camera that's shooting this webcam, it's a T5i, which is like a pretty old Canon DSLR at this point, but the lens on it is a Rokinon cinema lens. So I'm not like trying to brag or anything, but I definitely think the quality comes straight from the lens, not the camera.
Oh, for sure.
And
yeah, like if I use a D5600, it's I mean it's a good camera. It's a really good camera. I mean, but I use kit lenses, and it's if I were to use one of Nikon's really, or like the one I like know from like just researching is like a Sony G Master lens. Those are like really good lenses. If I were to use that, it'd be like dramatically different. Whereas a lot of people think like, no, I need to buy this really nice camera. But if you're gonna buy the really nice camera and then use like a kit lens from like this that I'm using, it's gonna be like, well, what's the purpose? Well, great, you have like 2 more buttons on there, but like you're not getting the same quality. So like it's the same with film, with what film you use. So it's like, if you got to use like the right film of what you want to do. I think that determines how good it looks. I mean, they all look really good. You can use like the lowest grade one. I think it'll still have a really cool personality to it, but it's very rarely about the camera.
Yeah, especially for film, because the camera really has like nothing to do with how like the film is captured when it's like
just
actual film. Yeah, it's just holding the film in place for the lens to like shoot the light on. And I definitely think the lens especially has like if you film like with this 8K EOS R5 with like the kit lens, it's not going to look like 8K. It'll probably look like 1080p at the best. But if you film like 1080p on like this T5i, but if I get like a $1,000 cinema lens on it, then it'll look like 8K, even though it's like only filming in 1080.
And I challenge anybody, literally anybody out there, look at 1080, 4K, 8K, and even 12K. I guarantee you will not be able to consistently tell the difference. I'm telling you, there's not at all. So I think it's a whole like buzz thing of like bigger numbers. I actually really think it has no difference.
Yeah, and I agree with that because here Patrick is going to come and correct.
Sure, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, there's obviously a difference. Oh, sorry. But there's obviously a difference. I mean, there's a reason they're different thingies, different like levels. But what I was gonna say from a perspective of someone who does like work for people, if I'm gonna give you 8K, you're not gonna post it to your Instagram feed in 8K, because Instagram's gonna lower it to 1080 no matter what.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
In terms of working for people, I don't think that it's necessary to have like a very high-end camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Patrick, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna comment on the 12K Blackmagic that Ursa. No. 12K so useless. They had a perfectly good Ursa Mini.
Yeah, for sure.
Then they ruined it with a 12K.
Back to what Ubaid said. So like, especially, well, yeah, it's true. I agree with you, Patrick. With anything that's high resolution, so like even this camera, I have some files that I have that are like, like 6,000 by 4,000. That's what like it usually records at. And actually, a lot of the times when I try to upload files like that directly to Instagram, like I download them after whatever, like obviously they're not RAWs anymore, they're JPEGs, but they're still like a super high amount. There's actually like a really weird like thing that can happen to your photos where it looks like the sharpness is like way too sharp, and it's kind of like, it's really weird. So like a lot of people will purposely put their photos at 1080 and it just uploaded at that because they don't want like any weird distortion or any like, I don't know, any stuff going on with their photos. And it's just like, so really useless if you're going to be doing any practical stuff that 99% of people are going to do. Just post to social media.
Yeah, and I think we made that mistake on our last short film, link in the description. We uploaded it in 4K. That was really bad idea. Because even me, like you guys know, my internet connection is pretty bad. I could like barely watch it. I had to watch it in like 720, and even then it had to like buffer a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we were doing the reviews, you'd have to export it in like the lowest quality, like 240, and then upload it, and we'd have to like watch it, and we'd like critique it, and then you'd fix it, and then again 240.
Yeah.
Actually, I have the notes on my phone of the amount of times we redid that, and you had to re-export it. Let's see. So 13. I have 13 on here. There's probably a little bit more that I didn't write down. But 13 revisions on a short film. And that, how long was it? Was like 9 minutes? How long was our short film?
Yeah, it was like 9.5, 10 minutes.
So
in 4K with like my old computer with a GTX 650 exporting like this big 4K file into like 240 just so like we could watch it 14 times.
Yeah, 14. Yeah. So think about the practicality of what you're using. It's you don't need 4K.
Yeah.
A very nice tip that was told to me by Sir Karamian over here is edit with proxies.
Oh,
Any computer will do 4K if you use proxies. They're very easy to set up and very, very helpful.
But don't color grade with proxies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it like distorts like the colors and like the contrast and stuff.
I see. All right, well, on that note, are we going to move on to the next? This is the final segment.
Are we going to get an intro for the final segment, Patrick?
Let's get an intro for the final segment. Toss it over to Karamian on the piano.
Very nice.
Here we are. We have arrived. Let's take a look here. So we're gonna get a little philosophical on you guys. I can't speak English. Gonna get pretty deep here. How does your view on life determine how you make movies? We kind of have a running joke. All of us here have, I wouldn't say incredibly different, because we're still able to like collaborate and make things together. It's not like I can't do this because like it's too like we're still able to work together very, very easily. But the running joke is that we all kind of have like these we have like different styles and stuff, and I think just because like I know my style personally, it's a very, very like abstract kind of way of making things. So if you watch Covetous, link in the description, I wrote that, and you can tell going on now, because Covetous was the first movie that I did that I genuinely felt like, okay, I think I've finally arrived at a style that I really, really enjoy. And for anybody that watches movies by Robert Eggers, The Lighthouse obviously was a huge inspiration for that movie, but that's besides the point. Anyways, that kind of abstract style that I've arrived at, I think, is a direct kind of like reciprocation of like my kind of lifestyle. Like if anybody who's ever known me, I'm definitely not like a cookie cutter person. I'm very, very weird, very strange, and like these guys will know when they work with me, whether it's on set, whether we're writing, whether we're doing post-production work. It's like I speak in a really strange way that sometimes it's hard to understand. I act in a strange way. All these things. I want to play strange characters. I never want to do like what we did with like Spider-Man again, where it's just like teenager sad. Like I want to play really, really strange things and make strange movies. And I think that's just like, I think it definitely comes from kind of the experiences I've had in life and the way I perceive it. I think everything's very like absurd. It's not like a nihilist kind of thing, but it definitely has an effect. Let's toss it over to Ubaid. What do you think?
If it's okay, I'd like to start with Patrick. I got to think about this a bit.
Okay. We'll go to Patrick.
Okay, so I definitely think your life definitely like changes your style of filmmaking, even like the movies you're interested in watching if you don't make movies. and I definitely think everyone has their own style, so it's natural for the three of us to have three different styles. But even though we still work together, like Vance said, I'm kind of, I would say I'm in the middle between Vance's style and Ubed's style. Like Vance's likes making very like very like weird stories, very like mind-bending stuff, and Ubed is very like more like
vanilla.
Let's just make like a vanilla movie. I definitely started on Ubed's side with like, let's just make something simple that like we can get the story across easily. But I definitely think Vance has started like to pull me in his direction towards
Covetous, I think, played a big part. No.
Yeah, definitely, especially like because I could see like how interested you were and how you really wanted to do that. So I definitely I let you like co-direct with me, I guess, to like help me like figure out what you wanted it to be like, and that really helped me to understand like your point of view of like why you like these sort of like mind-bending and weird movies.
Yeah.
And I definitely think there's this is the thing I have in my life. There's pros and cons to everything. Like every style has good parts, every style has bad parts. And I definitely think at least for the couple scripts we have in the works, we're still going towards the weird area. But hopefully that we can go sort of more vanilla for a little bit.
Variation.
Yeah, to sort of see where all three of us sort of fit as like a group. But I definitely think, like as I said, I started out like when I was really young watching like the old like Hollywood movies. Like my favorite movies are the Indiana Jones trilogy back then. So Steven Spielberg, a lot of people don't consider him a artistic director, but I definitely think he is. And that definitely inspired me to get into movies, and those are the kind of movies even now I still really want to make sort of more like vanilla movies. And I definitely see more of those like traditional styles as sort of like what movies are in my mind. Ubed?
Okay. So I think it's like my upbringing played a very big part in what movies I make. I mean, obviously I wasn't into movies at all until like I actually got into this around sophomore year, so like 2 or 3 years ago. So my first few movies that I made were very, I mean, garbage, obviously. Not obviously, but they were garbage in my opinion. But they were very inspired from like random stuff I'd watch. Like I just watched like a YouTube tutorial on how to put Polaroids in 4D space, and then I made this terrible suicide prevention video, and I tried to do that, and it was terrible. And there's no link in description because that video is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. I don't know where it is.
Look at the archives and find it.
Yeah, but I think what I watched as a kid and what I watch even like nowadays is a very big like player in what I end up making. Like my family, we watched this one. It's like a generic cop show. It's called The Monk. It's a very good show. I highly recommend it. But my first, so I believe it was sophomore year, we had a project for the end of the school year. It was like 2 or 3 weeks we had to make it. And I'm not very good with ideas. My ideas usually will come to me like randomly, and most of the time if I like actually think about an idea, it's not going to be very good. But if I come up with an idea just out of nowhere, if an idea comes at me, if I'm like reading something online, then it ends up, in my opinion, being a pretty okay movie. So what I would, so like Monk is a pretty generic like cop movie where like cops like go solve a mystery, right? And then we had to write a script and tell it to the class, and I wrote like the most generic cop movie like ever, and it was so terrible, and everyone in class critiqued it like very much, and I wrote down like everyone's critiques. And then I was awake at night. It was like 1 or 2 in the morning. and I was looking over the critiques because the project was gonna be due in like 4 days, and I still hadn't made anything. So I was looking over the critiques, and I said, "What if I just made a movie about my movie with the critiques as the movie?" I just ended up making this really meta movie, which had like everyone's critiques in it. I think it was me playing a character talking to myself who was writing the cop movie, and I critiqued the cop movie from a secondary point of view, and then I showed what I could do in the cop movie instead of what I had written. It's a very meta movie, but I'll see if I can pull it up from the archives so we can post it and maybe show the link in the description if I can
maybe link in the description.
Yeah, I don't know where it is, honestly, but I think it's very reflective of who I am as a person. Like I'm really tied into inside jokes. I've held back on this podcast because I don't want the audience to like, what is he talking about? But many of my like conversations are very NPC like, and I lie heavily back on inside jokes that I have with people. So I think the movies that I make are really reflective of who I am, and yeah, that's kind of how it is.
Yeah, I think that movie was really, really interesting because, like you said, a lot of people were critiquing the first one, and it was kind of this, like, really cool, like defense kind of thing. But it didn't come off as like defensive. It came off as like really, really funny because everybody felt like they just got played. Like oh, that's my
inside joke.
Yeah, and so like maybe that won't reflect. That exact moment wouldn't reflect to like an actual short film if you were to post it, and people wouldn't understand. But I think it's an accurate representation of taking something that's happening in your life and making it a part of what you're creating. So like whatever you're going through, like you, as a filmmaker, you need to be aware of what's happening in your life and be honest about it in your movie. And like, if the thing that I've found that is really, really interesting and really, I think it's telling to show yourself like I'm actually getting somewhere, is when somebody will watch your movie and say, "Oh, dude, like I could tell that was you. Like I could tell like you like that was definitely something that you'd make." That was like, I think that's when you start to get really, really into something that you can arrive at. So like when people who actually know you know that you're putting your actual personality and your heart into films that you make, it becomes much, much better. I was just watching I forgot what it's like Film Prism or something. They do these it's a blank movie if, right? And I was just watching one about Steven Spielberg, and he's the thing that makes a great director or any great person in film is that they're not afraid to like open up and put their feelings out there. And so the big thing with Steven Spielberg is, growing up, he had a lot of trouble with like his father and childhood in general, and kind of feeling like he didn't get to like have that experience. And you'll see in like pretty much all of his movies, there's that same kind of theme. And I bet anybody who knew him or knows him like in real life, if they were to see that, they would know like that it was definitely, there's a bigger message that he's kind of talking about with his own life. And that's really, really powerful. Like and like when we watch that movie, we don't know that about him, but it comes off as really emotional and really driven because he's actually invested in what it is. So I think that's really cool. And that's why it was cool to see Ubaid's project, because it wasn't an obvious showing that you're on the way there. And it was like a really cool moment that nobody had done in that class before, of like taking a real life thing that you're experiencing and making it into a film. And it was cool that everybody got it. And I thought that was really, really awesome.
Another thing about that movie specifically is that I ended up, because my brother's in that movie for like one scene. I play like 6 different characters. My acting is not very good, but my brother is in a scene because we speak in Urdu to each other for the sake of a joke that was said in class. But I showed the movie to my family and it didn't make sense. But that's normal, because the entire movie is an inside joke with that class specifically. So yeah. It's very it's very odd. I mean, that's not odd, but it was interesting to see that it didn't make sense for other people, and it probably won't make sense to random people. But if you were in that class at that time, then that movie would make sense to you because you were in the like you were there when it was birthed.
Yeah.
I think like going along with what Vance said, with you have to take like stuff in your real life to like make into your movies and stuff. Another important thing is knowing your audience, and I definitely think that Ubed nailed that too, with making it like an inside joke with jokes that only the audience, which was the film class, would know. And that's what made it so funny, because it was like something everyone there experienced, and they knew what the joke was about. And I think that was really good, and a big reason too why it was such an amazing film.
Yeah, it was built on, like, you know,
real life.
It was cool.
I ended up doing a similar thing the next year with we have a project that our teacher starts us off with every year called Scavenger Hunt, where you just have to take a bunch of random shots that he gives you a list of and tie it into a story. And I remember in the class, I mean, obviously, I didn't have it. It's not obviously. Why do I keep saying that? But I didn't have any idea. And the story I had, I don't know if Vance remembers, it was like of a kid studying or something. And it was a really like boring idea. And then I was at home doing homework, and I was listening to, there's this artist called Audio Machine, and they make, there's this one album called, I'm probably going to butcher this because it's French or something. It's like La Belle Epoque, right? And it's an album of like bittersweet symphonies. And there was this one song that I listened to it, and then I was like, okay, this is like really good. And then I listened to it again, and I listened to it again, and I built like a story of a master class of our film teacher, because we'd always make jokes in class about if he had a master class, what he would say in it. And then I built this entire like master class of Wade Williams, and I ended up making that, which also it did a similar thing with the project of the end of the year. And
yeah. And so I think the cool thing of everybody to understand, if you've ever been the person to gravitate towards doing that, is how can you do that with something that everybody can understand, of taking something that's happening in your life and translating it into something kind of able to digest, something that, like, the weird thing about like Covetous, for example, was I had written that before like the whole like coronavirus quarantine started. we got a phone going off. But the crazy thing was I wrote that before everything had gone down, and it was a very, very, like, I had a definite inspiration for it, of course, Lighthouse, but obviously things that were going on in my life. But the thing that was really cool, that I don't know if it was lucky, but it was really, really cool, was that released during quarantine, and the movie takes place in a very, very quarantine setting. And I think the big reason why a lot of people were telling me, I really, really enjoy this, is really, really good, is because it was a definite kind of like perspective of what was happening in like real life. And if you look at any big film that has a deeper meaning, whether it's period based, so like if something's going on in a specific time, like you see a lot of movies made around the year 2001 are very, very based around like the kind of like terrorism, for example. And there's a reason that they're not just doing that out of whim, but the thing is like that's what really gets a film across. It's like knowing your audience, and I think that's what's really cool. My camera's dying once again. Let's go.
I think sorry, continue.
I was just going to say, so like the big thing that I love about Stanley Kubrick, for example, is his films have a message that's kind of universal. It's not just like condensed to this little time period, like it'll only make sense if you live in like the 60s or 70s. No, like these films have a message that extends past them. So like, like 2001 has this whole message of like how man, and it really is about like all of time. So it's natural that it becomes a timeless film, but the whole thing is that like we don't change. We're still like we're still the same organism hundreds and thousands of years later. So like I think it's cool, and that's why people gravitate towards it, because they're like, hey, like they're talking about us, you know what I mean? Like this is what's happening. Like I think that's why people like that movie so much. But yeah, what was it?
I was gonna say, I think that's the reason that Joker was also a really good movie, because I think that Joker's whole thing was obviously like, I mean, to simple it, it was like acceptance in society, and I think that everyone deep down has that thing where it's like, how am I gonna function when I go outside? And then that movie portrayed it in a really nice way to show how someone who has a condition has to function in a real world, and how it's not like the real world isn't going to accommodate for your problems. And it's a very good example of that, where I think everyone kind of, I mean, I'm not speaking for everyone in the world obviously, but people who like that movie, I feel like they understood how it was to try and fit in a place where you clearly weren't like wanted.
Yeah, and even if it's not like a conscious thing that you're like, oh, I understand the deeper meaning of this film, you're subconsciously relating to this guy, even though he's such a out there kind of person, and like the things that he does, like obviously most people aren't going to do, like they're not going to shoot somebody or whatever, but like people know that feeling, you know, like when you're dealing with somebody of just like that kind of crazy. And Jim Carrey has talked about this in one of his stand-ups of like, you guys ever have that feeling when you're in a car with somebody and you just think about what would happen if I punched this person while we were driving in the freeway? That movie is like an embodiment of actually doing it, of like and so like it helps people not actually do it. And that whole big thing, this is off topic, but the whole big thing is that the movie is going to cause violence. And I think ironically that movie is going to cause less violence. It's kind of an outing for people who have felt that way, to be like, oh, like I can watch somebody do this and like feel this kind of like uproar in myself, to see like somebody finally like going back against somebody who's been treating them so poorly. And so like I think that's what really helps those kind of films. And that's tying back once again, Marvel. I gotta go back to Marvel, man.
Uh-oh.
Nobody is a superhero. You know what I mean?
Give me a second, sorry. Like, my camera decided to take its turn on dying.
Hey, it's both Canon and Nikon apparently. But nobody's a superhero, you know? And so, and this is not Marvel, but like that's why I don't like superheroes like Superman, for example. It's just not relatable in any way. Nobody's like immortal, can fly across the galaxy, read books in a millisecond, blast through the sun, absorb, you know what I mean? So I just don't think those are very interesting. Whereas if you look at like a different kind of setting, so like the reason I've liked Spider-Man my whole life is because he's like a kid, you know what I mean? It's not, you see that. And so I think when movies are able to demonstrate something that's real, something that's actually going on in people's lives from day to day, that's what really grabs people and makes people want to watch that and want to stay with it. So.
And I think that's also like a big reason. Like, okay, so last year my English class was mythology. So myths are a great example of this, of like taking like an everyday scenario that like basically everyone has, and like just changing it just a little bit to make these like iconic stories that even though they're like thousands of years old, we still like listen to them, and they're still like these big parts of our cultures and stuff. And I think that's I don't know if this would work, but I'm thinking if you really want to make like relatable movies, try to make like some random event in your life like as if it's a myth, and just like write a story. You can give like them like superpowers or something, but base it around like a life event that you've had, and you can like shift it just a little bit. You can simplify it to make it easier to understand, and I think it's going to be very relatable, because one thing I learned in that class is we're all humans. We all think that like we have different experiences, but really we don't. We all experience basically the same life. We all have this basically the same issues, the same strengths and weaknesses. And if you take something from your life, then that means that everyone else has experienced that, or at least something similar to that, so they're all going to be able to relate. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big part in making relatable films.
For sure. And I think that was the cool thing about arriving at my kind of like style per se with with like Covetous and stuff is I've had a lot of experience in my life with like mental illness and like, you know, this kind of very, very abstract kind of thing that I thought for a long time, like people don't experience this kind of thing with people, and they don't get to see these kind of people that have these kind of things, these kind of issues, and being able to play those characters that are very, very, I don't want to say not normal because that's, you know, it's, you know, not the right term, but to play those characters, abstract characters in general, it kind of is like a way, not only for me, but I would hope for the audience to feel kind of accommodated, to feel like there's something there that is you can relate to, that you can, you know, it. And the reason why Covetous was, I think, was so perfectly timed, just randomly, was everybody wants to be that character. You know, they're sitting in your house. I don't want to spoil the movie, but you're sitting in your house every day, you're wasting away, and it doesn't matter how, you know, dangerous it may be outside. You just want to get out. You just want to get out, you know, just so badly, whatever your reason may be. And I think that was just like super, super cool. And I hope that like past this whole COVID thing, that still reigns true, because I know there's a lot of people who in general I think stay inside and are antisocial but don't want to do that. It's just they don't have the avenues to like access like a group of people that they can hang around. It's kind of that want constantly to want to go out and do things, and I just thought that was really cool to be able to do something like that. That's what I'm like trying to continue to do with writing, is keep that kind of relatable aspect. So, anybody else? Anybody? No?
I think we've covered it.
I think we're good.
Uh-oh. We're arriving at the end here. That was our last segment. We're going to swing it back over to Patrick Karamian to ring us out. Everybody, if you enjoyed today's podcast, think about subscribing. Think about liking the video. Maybe leaving a comment. If you're filmmakers like us, don't be afraid to reach out. We're here to talk, have a conversation. Go.
Don't be afraid to, if you have any rebuttal to what we said about Marvel or Canon or whatever, feel free to comment it and debate us. I mean, we're not like top of the
big brain universal brains.
Yeah, we're not like the cream of the crop and all that. We're equal to you guys. So feel free to debate us if you even listen through this thing. But yeah, hello
leave
to
questions
the few people
for the next podcast too.
Yeah, if you guys want to hear us talk about something or whatever it may be, if you want to check out what we've done, there's going to be links in the descriptions for all of that. Our Instagram pages, YouTube stuff we've done. Camera's dying again. Perfect timing. But yeah, it was really fun to do this first time. I'm going to be really excited to keep doing this. We've got some more stuff coming your way, and hopefully we can get some content out, film some stuff soon. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching.
Stay safe. Wear a mask, please.
Please, so we can get this over with.
Please
Please.
wear a mask. Like, please. I work in an ice cream shop. I don't need to be at risk.
All right,
it's an ice cream shop. All right, cool.